Spreading down from the Arctic and away from North America, Eurasia was still the largest landmass on Earth. The recurving of this gigantic landmass created the greatest folding of the upper crust on Earth. This folding and mountaining happened just above this new triangular broken away peninsula that we call India. If India wasn't hanging down there, northern India would be Asia's coast. This land area was stretched out to the side, just as northern Italy was stretched sideways, because it was on Europe's stretching coast. Down lower, on both India and Italy, the sideways pulling tension ceased, and normal recurving, mild mountaining began anew. Finally, Africa began tearing free of Europe. As Africa pulled downward, the mountains draped down over the left side of India. What about the other side? Brings us to Australia. Australia was broken in a long, sweeping break from North America and Asia. The break curved inward as it came down Asia. North America pulled away, but Australia was held against Asia by Antarctica, which clung in turn to South America and Africa, and then, of course, Asia. Seems complicated. It's not. Finally, mainland Asia could stand the pressure no longer, and it tore a mighty tear, a tear we now call the Yellow Sea. This relieved the pressure on Asia, and that lower land was to be forfeit. As Australia pulled down, the land unwound and finally had to bend backward and break into islands, which turned out into the sea. Australia was pulled down inexorably, and the mountains angled down Indonesia, with the land folding along the right side of India, folded like cloth folds. Asia also spread from the North Pole. It crushed down on India. This is why we have buckled mountains above and to the sides of India. The only true reason. Australia finally tore away from Antarctica 65 million years ago and took its place in the spreading ocean. It isolated the southern marsupials. The marsupials' bigger home, Antarctica, froze over with the arrival of the newly created deep-sea plate. The ocean surrounded now Australia, which became the one big remaining home for marsupial life. Islands such as Great Britain, Norway, Sweden, and others are broken off chunks that, as with Iceland, still move as the Earth grows semi-slowly away from their mainland homes, riding within and on their spreading plates. Gigantic Africa, released now to spread downward, pulled Europe to bend downward, and then the real hardcore tearing and stretching began. Tearing and stretching which gave us, today, the Mediterranean Sea. But because of the landmass we now call Saudi Arabia, Africa's trip downward would not be easy. Saudi Arabia acted as a pivot, pulling and stretching the land to the left before it could pull downward. This pulled open the Aral Sea, the Caspian Sea, the gigantic Black Sea, and then, in a clear progression, and at the same time, the Mediterranean opened. Just a small point that I thought might interest you. These bodies of water all have a similar shape because of the way they were pulled apart. The Mediterranean is pulled at the center, a bit to the right. Then this happens. Two lobes are ripped open on either side. Because the Black Sea sits above these mountains, the direction of the tear goes upward or downward, again like the Mediterranean, and then the two sides also tear into lobes. Then we go to the Caspian Sea, which tears to the left. Here again is the center tear and the two lobes. But now we come to the Aral Sea, which doesn't seem to follow the same pattern. I spent months contemplating this unsupportive body of water. I figured 3 out of 4 isn't bad. Then I looked at other maps and found this, which uses actual photographs of the Earth. See that shape, that's lower tectonic plate? If the water was deeper, this land would be filled with water. This shape is almost exactly the same as the Caspian Sea area, spread at the middle and two lobes of spread. This area on the Aegean is most interesting. As the stretching and pulling forces in each body of water stretched open, this land area between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean burst open in slow motion as Africa pulled down. It's like watching an explosion in slow motion. This process is still going on. That's why there is so much recurring volcanic activity in this area. Watch this model, please, as we enlarge the planet. The 10-mile thick hardened curved tectonic plates are longer on the top than at the underside because of the curve. When the crust recurves to a less curved state, the upper crust must collapse in a series of wrinkles. Call them mountains. The center of the continent falls straight down, as you can see. Let's go to North America and let the Earth grow. Watch as the surface recurves, collapses, and folds into mountains. This is how we get mountains. Just as mountains wrinkle and fold, the edges of the continents crack and split. This is what these cracks are. The same recurving that makes mountains also creates those continental shelf cracks. This is an undersea map. As a kind of test for ourselves, we deemed it important to show that not only the upper plate had to fit properly together, but the undersea had to spread in a logical, reasonable pattern that we could see and understand as rational humans. Do you see those lines in the undersea which, beyond information, show direction? The direction of movement apart and away from the rifts. In fact, it's like a movement diagram, isn't it? We're moving now. Let me point out that the newer undersea near the rifts is smoother and more regular than the older land further away from the rifts. Here in the Atlantic, the rift goes right up the middle. Half of the Earth's growth has happened since the extinction of dinosaurs. This means that the Earth is accelerating in its growth. In the last 65 million years, Earth nearly doubled in size. The last redoubling took 600 million years, at least. We're continuing all the indicated undersea directions like following a blueprint. The Earth guides us. And now the land masses will come together perfectly. As we now go forward in time from 185 million years ago, please notice there is no subduction, no raising and lowering of land masses. There can't be. It's hell in the form of magma down there. Local raising and lowering, yes, but not on a massive basis. It can't happen. There's no turning, rotating of land masses. The land masses sit in their individual plates and don't move. The rifts open, that's all. For examination, I'm going to run a few vignettes of each area of Earth that you have a right to be curious about. The North Pole. Man, I love this map so much. There was a piece in the recent National Geo. It shows that the trees in Asia and North America were exactly the same trees. Well, this is why. The land was together when the trees evolved. The South Pole.